Hey, today is the day that we just call Gospel Sunday. Next week is a Sunday we call Going Public. And it's where people go public with their faith in baptism. But it's really, really important that you understand the gospel. And the thing is, I just shared with you some bad news. And no one's excited about that. But the reality of this is, we must not allow any bad news, whoever it is and whatever it is. We must not allow anything Satan does in any person's life or any group's life or anyone's life to distract us from the mission that God has given us. And we will not be distracted. I hope that you can say that with me. We will not be distracted. We are going to set our eyes on this is what we are called to do. We are called to change the world through the power of Jesus. And so we stay absolutely laser focused on that. So I have some good news to share with you today. And I'm going to share with you the gospel, the good news. And some of you may be saying right now, oh, well, listen, this isn't for me. I can sit back and kick back, or I can pull up my phone and play Candy Crush or whatever it is you do. I don't know. But I hope that you won't, because I believe that there are a lot of people in this world. I believe there are a lot of people in a lot of churches, and probably some in ours, that think they've heard the gospel before and think they've responded to the gospel before, but it's something that's similar to the gospel and kind of a watered down version of it. And I want to try as best I can to share with you the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. When Jesus started his ministry, he goes, it is time. The Father says, it's time. Go public with your ministry. This is what I sent you to do. He went into the synagogue and he walked up and he read a passage from Isaiah that just really spoke about him and what his ministry would be. And it was this: the Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free. That little term that gets translated good news, it's just one little Greek word. It's the word euangelion. And that may not be, it kind of looks like evangelism, okay? And that's kind of where we get it from. The word is translated good news, or in some places it's translated gospel. All means the same thing, because the gospel is the good news. In fact, before Jesus ever even came, this word euangelion was in use. And it was used of a runner who would be at the point of the battlefield where a battle went on. And if his army won, if they were victorious, they sent the runner back to the city to give the good news. And the good news was, we won. And the whole city heard the good news, and the whole city celebrated their victory. But they had absolutely, positively no involvement in it. They were back in the city. The battle was raging someplace totally different. They didn't pick up any type of armament, and they didn't do battle, but they had won. And that's exactly what the gospel is. The gospel is God has won it. We had nothing to do with it, but we get the victory. Jesus' message of the gospel was pretty simple. He gets started, and here's what happens. He says, come follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to be fishers of people. And then he meets someone else, and he says, as Jesus went from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. Follow me, he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him. And pretty soon he finds someone else, and he says, whoever serves me must follow me. And then he finds someone else, and he says, go, sell all your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me. The good news, the gospel, is all about following Jesus. I want you to get that. The good news, the gospel of salvation is about following Jesus. There's one verse in the New Testament that I think absolutely positively nails it. Jesus really just nails it right here in Matthew 16. He says, then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. He explains what following him is all about. He explains what being a Christian, what being a Christ follower is really all about and what it means. And if I ask you what it means, you may tell me one thing. And if I ask you and I've asked you, you may all tell me a different thing. I want to try to tell you as simply as I possibly can, but as straightforwardly, what it means to be a Christ follower, what it means to be a Christian, what it means to have a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. What does it mean to follow him? I'm just going to give you 3 things today, and I hope that you'll remember them. The first is that Jesus calls us to follow him into death. That Jesus calls us to follow him into death. You say, I thought this was all about getting eternal life. It is ultimately, but first we have to follow him into death. Salvation is about God putting the old us, the old person, to death. Christ died, but we share in his death. Now most of us who have been around the church or been around Christianity for a while, we understand the whole concept that Jesus died for us. We got that down. Jesus died for me. Yes, yes, yes. I love Jesus. Yes, I do. I love Jesus. How about you? All right. We got that. But the part that we sometimes miss is the other part, that we die with him. You go, nobody told me nothing about no dying. Somebody needs to tell you about dying. It's not your body that dies. It's yourself. Yourself has to die. Look at what he said again. Then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves. You must deny yourself the opportunity to run your life. You must deny yourself the opportunity to be number one. You must deny yourself the right to be the Lord of your own life. Because we all, by nature, want to be the Lord of our lives. We all, by nature, want to look out for number one. We all by nature want to decide where we go and what we do and who we're friends with and what we say and what we don't say and where we live and how we work and everything about us. And Jesus is saying you have to deny yourself. You got to put self off the throne of your life. You must take up your cross. Now, a lot of us, we go, yeah, take up the cross. It's all about the cross. Yeah, crosses are cool. We put them on our walls. I wear one around my neck. We hang them places. We put them on our churches. Do you understand? Right when Jesus said this, there was no Christianity. There were no churches. No one wore a cross, because only thing they knew about crosses were that was the most horrible way to die that you could die. And Jesus says, willfully take up your death. Take up the purpose and the means of your own death. And then he says, only then will you be able to follow me. Those who try to save their life are going to lose it. And those who willingly die to self and give up their life will save it. What do you mean die? Die to what? You die to the lordship of your life. You don't get to be the Lord of your life anymore. You die to self-preservation. You realize there's something more important and better than just living and just trying to keep on living. You die to your own personal values. You don't get to set your value system. You just get rid of your value system and adopt Jesus' upside down value system. You die to self-exaltation. You don't look out for number one. You place yourself at number 2 or 3 or 4 or down the list. You know, I don't know if you know, my favorite author is a guy by the name of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. If you've never read anything by him, I hope you will. He has some wonderful quotes, but my favorite quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer is this. He said, when Jesus calls a man, he bids him come and die. You may have never heard that. You may have never thought of that. But when Jesus calls you, he says, come and follow me. It's to follow him into death. To follow Jesus means to never lead your life again. You go, of course I lead my life. You can't lead your life and follow Jesus. Either you're leading or you're following. You have to choose which it will be. Paul writes to the church at Galatia, and he writes this: I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live. The me that was no longer lives, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. I no longer live. Paul is saying, hey, I had a life, but when I met Jesus, everything changed. The guy I was, I am no more. I don't live. Jesus is just simply living out his life through me. In other words, you have given over the steering wheel of your life to Christ. And you are sitting in the passenger seat. Or maybe you're sitting in the back seat. And you don't get to do the driving. And you don't go where you want to go. You go where he takes you willingly. Paul writes to the church at Rome and he says this: therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your body as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. He says we must offer our bodies as living sacrifices. Do you understand? Living and sacrifice, those don't go together. It's what we call an oxymoron. A sacrifice was a sacrifice when it was offered to God and it was killed. Its blood was shed. Sacrifices were dead. He said we are to be living sacrifices. Dwight L. Moody said something really, really important about living sacrifices. He said the problem with living sacrifices is they keep crawling off the altar. And that's true. We want to offer ourselves as a living sacrifice to God. Do with me as you see fit. But we have a tendency to go, wait a minute, I got some plans, I need to do this, and then I'll get back. The biggest misunderstanding. Hear this. Lean in. I believe the biggest misunderstanding about following Jesus is that Jesus is just another accessory that we add to the life that we choose for ourselves. It's kind of like you ladies, and you have this great dress and this wonderful shoes and this wonderful jewelry, and you get these earrings, and someone says, oh, that is a wonderful outfit, but those earrings just make it perfect. They're the perfect accessory. It was good before, but now it's great. Or guys, you got this boat, and they go, man, your boat's great, and your trolling motor's great, and your trailer was great, but now, whoa, that depth finder you added, that just made it the perfect package. Or maybe they go, that new car that you got, I mean, it was a no-brainer. It's a great car, but when you got that lifetime warranty, that just made it perfect. I think sometimes we think of Jesus as just being an eternal lifetime warranty. Yeah, I have a great life. I have a wonderful life. I don't want to change anything in my life. I don't want to do anything different. I don't want to love different people. I don't want to live by a different standard. I don't want changes in my life. I just want to go to heaven when I die. So I want to add a little Jesus, and I just want to have an eternal lifetime warranty. And I'll keep living the same way I live and doing the same things I do and have my own life plans and my own values and make my own choices. And we think of Jesus as just a really great aftermarket add-on. Jesus is not an accessory. Jesus changes everything. When you invite Jesus into your life, he takes over. He makes you, he starts day one making you look less and less like you and more like him. Those who attempt to make Jesus just like a little accessory to their life, yeah, I'll pray a little prayer, I'll get a little wet, I'll do a little this, I'll hand out some programs, I'll do some things, I'll even go to church. Jesus has a word for those, and he says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. And the will of his Father who is in heaven is that you give your entire life to Christ, that he becomes your life. The second thing is this. He calls us to follow him into new life. Jesus, if we're to follow Christ, if we're to be a Christ follower, Jesus calls us to follow him into a new life. Paul says to the church at Corinth, he says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here. Jesus did not leave heaven. The Creator did not take on the form of a creature and die a horrific, horrible, disgusting death so that you could be the same. He did it so that you could be brand new, so that he could change you into the image of himself. You may be saying, what does he want to change? He wants to change the way you act. He wants to change the way you react. He wants to change the way you think. He wants to change the places you go. He wants to change the way you handle your finances. He wants to change the way you do business. He wants to change the way you raise your kids. He wants to make you a new person. He wants to give you a brand new life that looks nothing like the life you had before he came in. The bottom line is this: Jesus changes everything. Jesus changes your everything. He changes what makes you satisfied. He changes what gives you joy. He changes what you want to do. He changes your purpose from yours to his. Paul writes to the Romans, the second half of that verse I just read. And he says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Salvation. Let's be real clear. Salvation does not come from attending a confirmation class. It does not come from praying a simple prayer. It does not come from any rules or rites or rituals or religion. It comes when we make Jesus the absolute, complete, and total Lord of our life. When he becomes our life. Well, how do I know? I mean, how does anybody know? How do you know that you belong to Christ? The proof of salvation is a transformed life. You have been transformed. And that the old is gone, that the new has come. And let me just be really, really bold and say this to you today. I don't care if you've been around here for a week or you've been around here for a year or you've been around here for forever. If that doesn't describe you, you know what you need to do today? You need to make Jesus the Lord of your life. Again? No, not again. For the first time. For the first time. But there are no buts. We're talking about the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. We're talking about the gospel. And not your gospel or my gospel, but his gospel. His good news. The third thing that I want to emphasize is this. He calls us to follow him to walk in victory. What keeps us from walking in victory? Why do we stumble? Why do we fail? Why do we fall? Why are we down? Why are we under the circumstances instead of above the circumstances? Why don't we walk in victory? It's because of sin. You've read this before. Romans 3:23 says, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. We've all sinned. All have sinned. Every one of us have to admit, we've all sinned. Sometimes everyone knows it. Sometimes nobody knows it. But we've all sinned. We were born in sin. Sin comes natural to us. It's the most natural thing. It's like breathing. But sin also cuts off our relationship with a God who loves us, a God who created us and who made us and desires, for whatever reason, I don't know. I can't explain it, but I'm just happy. I'm just glad. Who desires to have a personal relationship with us. He wants to be our Father. He wants us to be his children. He wants us to be a part of his family forever. But sin makes us believe that we're in control. When in reality, sin's always in control. In fact, it enslaves us. It lures us in, making us think, hey, it's our choice, when it's really its choice. And it enslaves us, and it holds us. Sin is a universal problem. Jeremiah writes about it, and he says, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. That's why we sin, because we have sinful hearts. We have dirty hearts. We have deceitful hearts that say, yeah. Do it your way. No one will know. No one will care. Hey, you've earned this. You deserve this. You got this. The heart is deceitful, and it's beyond cure. You can't cure it. You can't make it better. But Ezekiel writes this and says, this is God speaking, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. God says, you have a problem and you have no answer for your problem. But I am God, and I have an answer for your problem. And my answer is not reformation. It's not for you. And many of you, bless your hearts, you just believe that. You're gonna reform yourself. I'm gonna try harder. I'm going to read some good, maybe some Christian self-help books, and I'm going to get better, and I'm going to read the Bible more, and I'm going to pray more, and I'm going to, do this more, do that more. I'm going to be more regular at church. Those are all really good things. But they don't change the fact of who you are. Because your problem is one that you can't heal. The answer is not reformation. The answer is not just try harder and do better. The answer is transformation. And that is something that you cannot do. That is something that only God can do. The answer is you being an entirely new creature. And you can't make yourself a new creature. You can dust off the one that you are. You can break some bad habits and create some new ones, but it doesn't change your heart. Only God can change your heart. And he doesn't just fix the one you have. He removes the one you have and gives you a new heart. It's about allowing God, listen to me. It's about allowing God to do for you what you cannot do for yourself. So let me just ask you these questions. Are you a new person? Seriously, ask yourself that question. Am I a new person? Do I see the old me and then a brand new person that God has made me since I invited Christ into my life? Has the old you gone and a new you been born? See, that's what God promises when Jesus Christ comes in and takes over. And finally, is Jesus more than an accessory to your life? Is he your entire life? If you can't answer yes to those questions, do you know what you need? You need Jesus. And that's not the bad news. That's the good news. Because Jesus says, I'm right here and I've been waiting for you to say yes to me for so long. You go, but wait a minute. I have a reputation. I've been doing this. I've been serving here. I've been doing this. Maybe some of you say, I've been thinking I've been a Christian for I don't know how many years, or maybe I got this, or I got that, or I did. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. God says he's opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And you have to be willing to humble yourself enough to say, I don't care what you think I am or think I've been. I want to be what only God can make me. I want to know that I am right with God through Jesus Christ. So I'm going to ask you to do something right now. I'm going to ask you to bow your heads, every one of you. Hey, and I want to ask you something really, really important and really, really powerful. And I don't want you just to slip by. I want you to be honest with yourself and honest with God. If you have never made Jesus Christ the Lord of your life, if you've never seen the old you crucified and dead and gone and a brand new you come to life, then you need to make him the Lord of your life today. And I would love to lead you to pray to begin that journey of following Christ. I'm going to ask you what I oftentimes do, but I'm talking to you today. If you've never really made Jesus Christ the Lord of your life, and you want to change that today, no one's looking but me and God. I just want you to slip your hand up. Would you do that? Right now. Slide it up. Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Awesome. That is awesome. Pray this with me. Jesus, I desperately need you. I need you to put to death the old me and raise to life a new me. I want you to put a new heart in me. Take out this old heart of stone and put in a new heart and a new spirit. And I don't want you just to be an accessory to my life. I want you to be my whole life. I give you control of my life. In Jesus' name, amen. You know, We talked about the euangelion. That was the good news that the runner would run and tell to the city. And you know what? Those of you that prayed and truly, honestly invited Jesus Christ into your life today, I believe the euangelion is in you. The good news is in you. And you need to run and you need to tell others that it's there. You know, Peter, after Jesus died on the day of Pentecost, he gets up and he preaches for the very first time. It's his first message and his best message ever. Because 2,000 people respond and they come and they did what you did today. They made Jesus Christ the Lord of their life. And it says after that in verse 41, those who accepted his message were baptized. In other words, they didn't just privately invite Christ into their life, but they very publicly said, I am not ashamed of the gospel and I am not ashamed to follow Jesus. They went public with their faith, and we're called to do the same. And maybe you've never done that. Hey, maybe you've never really followed Jesus and his command to be public and go public in baptism. If you pray with me today, I'm going to tell you something. Next Sunday, I want you to be here and I want you to be baptized. There are some of you that have prayed with me last week or last month or whenever, and you've been saying, yeah, I need to do that. Yeah, I need to. Someday I'll do that. Some days aren't promised us. You need to obey now. Sarah is about to come up here and tell you exactly how you can do that. And we'd like to celebrate your new life next Sunday. All right? Sarah, you come. God bless you. I love you.